All right.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Eastern Missouri Google Educator Group Kickoff to Summer. We are getting ready to have a webinar.
Everyone, and welcome to the Eastern Missouri Google Educator Group
Something happened.
Kickoff to Summer.
Was that you?
My bad.
All right.
Whoa.
Oh, it's still happening. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to blow through this, and we'll let the audio catch up. So my name is Bill Bass. I am one of the leaders of the Google Educator Group of Eastern Missouri, and we're really excited tonight to talk about getting started over summer and doing some learning before kids come back in the fall. It's crazy to think that we are going to have kids come back in, for some of us, a mere 6 weeks, but it's going to go fast, and it's, unrelenting. Before we get started, though, I want to tell you about the Google Educator Group. Google Educator Groups are groups of educators that come together around a Google focus and really learn together in various ways. And so the Google Educator of Eastern Missouri is a group that we created to really reach out to teachers and educators around the St. Louis and Eastern Missouri area in order to basically kind of spread that Google goodness to a lot of teachers and a lot of classrooms and really give people the ability to connect around Google tools. So we host events regularly around the area, and we also have a community that you can join. We're pretty easy to find. If you just just search for a Google Educator Group, you will find Google's page, and then in that, the Eastern Missouri chapter is available. So I would encourage any of you watching this to come and join us, share what you know, and learn from others around you.
And the kind of in-person way to learn is the Google Summit. My name is Patrick Dempsey, and I get to co-lead the GEG with Bill and Greg, and I'm an 8th grade science teacher in Webster Groves, Missouri. And the Google Summit is a great in-person event. It's happening this year on October 1st, and proposals are due June 15th. And if you search GAFE-MO, G-A-F-E Mo, you'll come across this. And this year it is at Southwest Middle School in the Parkway School District. And it's just a great way to get together with individuals who either want to learn Google education tools or have something to share. So it's a great meetup of a lot of the people that are in the GEG, but a lot of people who are not as well. So check out the Google Missouri Summit that's coming up October 1st.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm Greg Lawrence, also one of the co-leaders for GEG Eastern Mar. And tonight, really, as we get kicked off for the summer, we have a great just webinar and online learning called Slides Reimagined. It's interactive activities with Google Drawings and Slides. And our special guest is Stephanie Filardo. She is from Sullivan School District. And what's great about Stephanie is, first of all, her willingness to share some of the great things she's been doing with her learning and her students in her classroom. But the other great thing is recently Stephanie was accepted to attend the Google Innovator Academy in Boulder, Colorado in June. So we're extremely excited for her and know we'll get to learn more from her over the next couple of weeks and months and years as she joins in and starts sharing and continues sharing her Google love and how it's impacting her classroom. So with all that being said, we'd like to welcome Stephanie. And Stephanie, whenever you're ready, we're ready for you to share what you've got for us tonight.
Okay, thank you for the awesome introduction there. I'm going to preface this with I have a husky, and he seems to be wanting to talk a lot. So if you guys hear a dog in the background, sorry about that. Okay, so welcome to Slides Reimagined. This is, what I'm about to show you guys is something that's kind of my bread and butter for what I do during the school year. I love it because it just is something that works so seamlessly with what I want to do in my classroom, and it's a great way to get other teachers in my room to be able to see what I'm doing with technology in my classroom. So a little bit about me before we get started. And let me slide share it here. Okay. First of all, there is a link. I posted it in the Google Hangout, but there's also my shortened URL on there. You guys have access to this to view it. I had like 3 people check it, so we should be good on sharing. I have my presentation link as well as a shared folder, so all those resources are up there to access. And so this is Slides Reimagined. One of the ways that this is going to be a little bit different is that I am not going to put this in presentation mode. I don't really believe in putting slides in presentation mode because once you do that, you lose the ability to interact with it. And one of my favorite things to do is have students interact with the materials, which is just really what we're doing with this webinar tonight. So a little bit about me. I'm a math teacher. I bake, so I bake cupcakes regularly for my students and the staff. They absolutely love that. That's probably their favorite thing about me, other than the fact that I'm 2 doors down from any teacher who needs to know about Google stuff. I enjoy going to EdTech conferences. That's kind of how I got started in all this Google stuff, and I just loved it. I like being treated like a professional outside of school, so that's always nice. And I am a Twitter EdChat addict. Absolutely, absolutely. It's like one of my favorite things to do. So if you find me on any random day, I'm probably on Twitter on my phone, as I was when you guys were doing introductions. So sorry about that, guys. We had to retweet your tweets, so that's always something to check. Aside from Google stuff that I do have my level 1, level 2, and I'm going to the Google Innovator Academy in Boulder. Super excited about that. I pretty much already started packing. Probably shouldn't admit that to people, but hey, fun stuff. I'm also an author with Nearpod, which is an online delivery system, and I work with them and just make some lessons and use that in my classroom in addition to Google stuff. And I also kind of work with BrainPop some. So some good stuff that I do. Love my Google. I've got some other tools too. So to the reason why we are here today. As far as this webinar goes today, the why is slides and drawings. So we can put 2 things together. And why would we do that? Well, because one thing in itself is pretty awesome. 2 things together makes a powerful tool. That's one of my favorite things about Google tools, is it's just completely it is what you want it to be. It has to do with your imagination and anything you want to do. So today we're going to be looking at Google Slides and Google Drawings and putting them together. Specifically, I'll be showing you guys some of my examples that I use in my math class, but we'll also be talking a little bit about how this looks in other content areas. So that is our why. Now let's look at some benefits and possibilities. So when you're working in drawings and slides, you have the ability to do moving pieces. And what I do is I create reusable templates, so that way my planning time is low, and then I'm able to have consistent integration, and it works for the form and function of what I need in my classroom. The benefits of slides and drawings with those movable pieces is that you don't have to worry about breaking formatting, any kind of that stuff that you would with a Google Doc, and then being able to save the drawing and put it in as a background, or just put it in so the pieces aren't moving around that you don't want to move. That's kind of the most important thing for me sometimes in my class. So some examples that I'd like to show you guys. And if you are in the URL, so if you're actually in this presentation, you can click up at the top. It is a link that's going to open up and prompt you to make a copy of it. So feel free to do that. All of these things you guys can play around, or it's also in the shared folder. This is an example of an activity that I made with my students. We were having difficulty with solving 1-step and 2-step equations, so we took it down to basics. And I wanted to make sure that they really understood inverse operations. When I do notes with my students, I really like to incorporate some sort of interactive feature with it, because I know that I do not enjoy taking notes, and they really don't enjoy taking notes, so it's always nice to kind of have that piece in there. So what I did with this is I made it so that you can pick up and move the pieces. So you can say, well, if addition is over there, then on the other side of the line is the inverse operation, so subtraction is going to need to go there. And then I could have them, put in a text box and type in the information that they're going to need to know of as far as what it looks like in words, so describing what it looks like in words, and then what it looks like in an example. But I also have kind of the scaffolded part of it for the students that need a little bit more verbiage on it, because I am big on differentiating. I have the options over here so the students can just pick it up and move it over. So addition looks like a number being added or a positive number. So we can take that and put it over there. Then they can find their example of what it looks like and move it over. So then I know really quickly, so it's almost kind of like a quick assessment. I know really quickly just from walking around the room how the students are doing with this particular topic. So that's kind of a fun one to play around with in my view. The way that, let me open it up.
Steph,
depending on how we put this one together.
real quick while you're pulling that one up. So I've used that kind of graphic organizer style before with drawings and kind of dragging things into place in my science class. What made you choose slides as kind of the medium for that?
The reason why I use slides with this, and I just opened it up, and this is more the version that's kind of got a little bit more room, so it's a bit easier to see on the sides. The aspect ratio of the other one was kind of scrunched anyway. The reason why I chose to use slides for this is because when I click, everything that's on here is the background image, so I'm not going to accidentally move something that doesn't need to move. So what happened the first time I tried to do an activity like this is that the students ended up messing everything up, and instead of doing Control-Z or undo to undo it, they completely broke it, and then they thought they could leave it, not realizing that the wonders of Google was going to save it. So it really kind of saves a bit of a headache, in that the only pieces they need to move are the only pieces they can move, and it just leads to not as much confusion.
That is genius. Good move.
Yes, my students are definitely the best beta testers in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for this particular activity, I assigned it to them through Google Classroom, so it automatically made an assignment for each of them. I made a copy, which was really nice. And then I usually just have a title slide in there with some instructions. So it says to drag and drop the operations and descriptions into the appropriate boxes. I told them not to edit the text on that one. Sometimes, it really just depends on the group and where we're at in our learning process of this. If I use it earlier in the year, we may be having them move the stuff around, or it could be that they just create a text box and put the information in. A lot of it has to do with how good are they at using the Google tools yet, where are they at in their kind of metamorphosis with being used to everything being online, or not everything, but a good chunk of it being online. So that is my inverse operations graphic organizer, and I'm going to go through some examples, and then I'll go into the nitty-gritty of how I actually put that into the background. So if you're wondering how we do that, I will get to that. Gotta get the interest in there first, right? Okay, so the next one I want to show you guys is the function and not function. So we were identifying functions in algebra, and it's something that my students were doing kind of okay with, but they needed just a little bit more of an activity. So there's this card sort activity that some of the teachers in my math department had been using, but the thing about it is that it's the copies that come from having to create, making all the copies, cutting out the pieces, making sure that the pieces are turned the right direction, because there's an x-axis and a y-axis on these pieces, but once you spread it all out, it can spell disaster if they're not in the right orientation, which is kind of important when you're identifying functions, or if something's not a function. And I'm sorry if I'm giving any of you guys that are not math fans terrors about having to sort this out. You don't actually have to. Again, if you click up in the top of this, there's a link, and you can open up your own copy, or you can access it through the shared folder. So with this one, I created the back of this. I'll move that out of the way for a second. The back of this is, so the function, the line, and the not function is an image that I put in the background. And then the rest of this is just images that I put in. And so I have the students go through, and they will decide, is it a function or is it not a function, and then move it from one side to the other. And then I have this little line over to the side that kind of mimics the vertical line test. I know more nightmares for you guys about algebra if you're not algebra people. It mimics the vertical line test, so those that need a little bit more assistance with it can use that if they need to. So if it crosses more than one time, it's not a function. If it only crosses one time, it's a function. So they can go through and they can sort all of that out as they need to. And then when they submit it, I can, again, when I'm walking around, I can check it as they're walking around, or when they submit it, I can take a look at it. We can do some cooperative activities. They can compare with a neighbor, all that. You know, there's the way that you interact with it is, you know, kind of your personality as a teacher. But it just kind of opens it up. So that way you don't have to take the time to cut out all the pieces. I can just create and I can just share this on Google Classroom whenever I need to use it, and it's not something that takes up space in my cabinet, which I feel like is increasingly smaller every single year. So that's function, not a function. So that one's kind of a replacement for a card sort activity. And then the third one, which is I think probably my favorite one, is, so this one is linear function number 6. I don't know why I didn't put linear function number 1 in here. Sorry, I've got some dogs barking in the background here. Guys, is that too loud?
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I don't know why I didn't put linear function number 1 in here, probably because I wanted to scare you guys with the negatives over here. So this activity, I have the background that's in here is just the, where it says instructions, complete the missing information, including the graph if needed, and then the graph itself. The linear function number 6 part is in here so that I can change it as I need to, and then I put in a table of information. So we use this when we spend most of algebra in linear functions, and I needed a way for the students to be able to work with finding the slope, the y-intercept, and writing the equation of a line, whether they were finding the slope from a graph, whether they were finding it from points. So I wanted to be able to have the flexibility to give them different pieces of information, but keep it in a consistent way for the students to see it. So what I did is I introduced them to this format, and it's something that we can add to every single class period. And I was really proud of myself because I was actually pretty consistently adding it, which really just speaks to the versatility of it. And it's really, this is the most consistent one that I really use. So I have a spreadsheet where I have all of my ordered pairs and all of my equations and everything, which is basically my answer key. And then I can just pop in the information really quickly, assign it in Google Classroom, and my students have access to it. It's great when I have subs. The students are used to it. And then when the students see this information on our, you know, as much as I hate to say it, state tests, then they're used to this information. They're used to working with it. So on this one, I put in the ordered pairs, and the students would, what they would do with this one is they would plot the points, and then they would graph the line. They would find the slope, which they could find using the slope formula from the ordered pairs, or they could find the slope from the points when they plotted them. They would find their y-intercept, which is the b, and then they would use the slope and the y-intercept to put it into slope-intercept form. So to spare you guys a little bit of time of me kind of putting that all together, my students have actually gotten really good at drawing the circles for the dots. I'll show you guys the next slide that I already have it done. So they can use the drawing tools to put in a circle. And then the nice thing about the line tool is you can put arrows at the end, so then it reinforces that, yes, that line does continue, so it keeps going. I know I'm over-mathing it, but you guys need to hear this anyway, right? So, so this is what it would look like when it's finished. This is what it looks like when the students get it. I have had some students go in and change the coordinate sometimes for the ordered pair, just to make it a little bit of an easier problem and try to tell me, no, this one really has a positive slope, Miss Filardo. But of course, I always have my master copy of it. So if I was going to change anything on that one, it might be kind of putting that into the image, but then I would have to edit the background image every time instead of just making a copy and changing the information. So lots of information in those examples right there. Now the main thing is, how do you do this? So the basic information that we need to know is, you're going to design your slide. So I usually start in slides and make it look exactly how I want to. And then I'm going to copy and paste it into a drawing, copy it, I'm going to crop it. so that way it's the right size, so I don't end up with anything stretched or kind of distorted. And then we're going to insert it as a slide into the background, and then that's just when you add your moving parts to it. So to open up an example to show you guys what it looks like and how quickly you can put one together, I'm just going to open up my template. And while I'm doing this, do you guys have any questions or anything you want to add in there?
I would say, you know, the one thing I love is, you know, working as an instructional coach, working with math teachers. What I love is the simplicity that you're sharing and all the great ideas of how to use this in a math class, especially, you know, how Google can be used in a math class. And I think that's amazing. And I think, like I said, what we're seeing so far is the simplicity behind it. And it's just thinking a little different, but it really does keep your students accountable, but also keep your students kind of, you know, still allowing them to use the tools that they have in front of them in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I know. I often hear from other teachers. I actually just got a message from somebody else who's going to be in the Google Innovator group this summer, and you know, she was talking to teachers at her school, and they want to do Office 365. They just don't want to do anything with Google. And like, why? Like, what is the reason? We were thinking maybe it's because they just didn't know how to put the equations in there. No, it's they just don't want to learn a new system. And it's not about changing everything you do. It's just kind of taking what you do and tweaking it just a little bit. And you know, I've been able to cut out so much plan time. I teach 6 different classes, and the fact that I use technology because it makes my life easier. I can automatically reuse something. So the fact that if I can do it, I'm pretty sure that anybody can do it. That's pretty much the way that I say it. And unfortunately, that's where some people sometimes stop listening. But you know, it's taking the time to learn more, to watch webinars like this one, I suppose. It really does make a difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys kind of how we can start out finding. Okay, so I took this image before of, I'm like, well, how could you do this maybe in a different content? How could you use this in, like, you know, social studies? I'm like, well, what's something we do in social studies? I'm constantly, even at the high school level, seeing where the students are taking a map and they're having to label it with all kinds of things. How could we do this in a slide? So this is challenging myself here because I was playing around with it, but I actually didn't finish putting this activity together before. So I'm like, no, I want to show how easy it is to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Google search for a map of the U.S., which it's remembering I searched that before. I'm going to look at images, and I'm going to do my search tools to usage rights, and I'm going to put it for labeled for reuse because, you know, we're responsible citizens of the world here. And I like that one, so I'm going to save it. Okay, and that's gone into the shared folder too if anybody really wants to steal this one. Okay, so once we have it, I'm going to take the picture. I'll add a new slide here. I'm going to take the picture and I usually always start with a blank slide, so that way I don't have to worry about any of the text boxes. I can put that stuff back in there if I need to. So what we're doing right now is I'm going to put in the image, so that way I can size it to how I need it to be. Okay. And I don't want that one. I want the one I just put in there.
They really do talk. Okay. I thought you were kidding.
Inserting. Oh yeah, they really do. Sorry, I kind of ignore it sometimes. Yeah, that's Atari. Yeah. he's really a vocal dog. Okay, so we've got the image in there. So now it's the right size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss in, and this is kind of just usually my placeholder thing. So I'm going to put in the size of, oops, make it the right size. I'm going to put a block that's the right size, so that way when I crop this down, everything will end up being the right size. So I'm going to select everything, copy it, go in, and I already created a new drawing slide before, but I'll do a brand new one just to make sure you guys know how easy it really is. So we'll do a new drawing. Yeah, I want to share it with everybody. Why wouldn't I want to share this with the world? Okay. We'll let Google do its magic of getting everything going together, paste it in there. And so you can see this box is smaller than what the drawing canvas is. So I'm going to grab the corner and I'm going to resize that, and that'll just make it again so nothing distorts when we do this. And then I'm going to delete that box, and then my image is on there. So this is going to be my US map. I'll save that. And then that's all the information I want to have on the background. I just want to make sure they can't pick it up and move it around. So I'm going to download it as an image. Sometimes I do a JPEG, sometimes I do a PNG. It just kind of depends. I really don't have a preference. So if you have a preference, just go with it. Then when I go back in, I'm going to, oops, gotta love undo. Okay. So what happens is that if I start labeling this, the students can pick it up and they can move it around, and I don't want them to do that. They're not interacting with this part. They're going to do other stuff on top of it. So I'm going to delete that out. I'm going to right-click or do the two-finger tap on the Chromebook, and I'm going to change the background. And I'm going to choose the image that I just had. So you can choose to upload an image, or if you already have it open, you can drag and drop it. So if I already had the files open, I could drag and drop that. Then once it's all in there, I'm going to click done, and it's going to think about it. Okay. Oh, you know what? That was the one that I did from Google. Let me undo that. Because it stretched it. It's not right. Let me choose it from my files. This is live webinar stuff, people. This is real stuff. Okay, I want the Google drawing one of the ones I was doing. Where did it save it? Recent. Okay. It didn't save my US map. Where'd it go? It's there. I promise you it's there. Sorry. Hang on a second. I'll make sure it's up at the top. Worst case scenario, you click show in folder and it's automatically going to put it there. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to drag it and drop it right in there. Now we're good. Okay, so now that it's the background, sorry about that, guys, we're gonna, like, you can't pick it up and move it. It's just gonna, like, there's really nothing on there. It doesn't realize that it's there. So then if I wanted to create the, I can take a text box and I can tell my students what I want them to do. So I can tell them to label Missouri in red, something like that. Sorry, I'm not a social studies teacher. You guys are just going to have to go with me. So then the students from here can take a text box and they can draw a text box on Missouri. And then there you go. So I usually always make it exactly how I would want, kind of my answer key of it, and then make a copy, delete the information off of it, and then that's what I use to share my students with. You can never, in my opinion, have too many backup copies of these things, just to make sure that you always have that template you can go back to, because this is something you could use it for many different things. Obviously, you're probably going to do a little bit more than just label Missouri, but that's really all you would need to do. If you want to get fancy and have the students draw a shape on here, you can go into the polyline. And we could kind of roughly sketch the outline of Missouri. And then the students can make that transparent, and they could turn it Control-K or insert link, and they could make it go to a page about information that they've done about Missouri. It could link to another presentation that they've done. Being able to put in links really, really kind of shows the impact of this entire type of activity, just because it creates something that's more than just about this slide. So that's kind of one of the really cool things about it. And I could make the lines on this actually disappear, so that way you don't really see it, but you click on it and it'll highlight it. So I didn't really put a link in there. I could, but if you're watching this, chances are you know how to find a link. Copy and paste. So that's kind of really quickly how you would make one of these activities. Again, as I mentioned before, I always or almost always put information. I have a title slide that has the instructions just in case a student gets to it. Say if a student's been absent and they're not able to benefit from the instructions that I've given in class, then I would always have it there. Oh, and you know what? I didn't follow my own instructions. I didn't put Missouri in red. Man, I'm going to have to talk to myself after class about that one, I suppose. Okay, and then let's see. So that's the how. So what can this look like in other contents? So in English language arts, there's a reason why they call it ELA. I don't know why I try to say the whole thing. You can do daily editing with it. So you could highlight, underline, you could type in a passage and have students annotate it, and write information contents off the side. So they're not changing what the text is; they're just interacting with it. I kind of showed the example of the geography with the maps. You could do there's lots of other things that you could do there. Lots of different parts of the world. You could do labeling parts of a cell. That's something that my next door neighbor teacher is a science teacher, and there's always different types of things that they're labeling, and she's always looking for kind of new ways to do that. So I don't know. Let's toss it out there to you guys and see, is there an idea where you could see in another content other than math using this that you'd like to share with our audience tonight? I know I'm putting you guys on the spot.
I think sometimes, like in ELA, students will build the parts of a story, and so you can have students build parts of a story using that. I just love that you've taken a tool that is normally used like in a summative way, where students can normally communicate, all right, this is what I've learned throughout this whole process, and you've made it a formative tool to where students can practice, and you can correct them along the way. It's really just it's taking slides and flipping it on its head for a whole new use, and I love it. Good stuff.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you like it. It's like I said, it's kind of my bread and butter of what I do. So I do in the presentation. That's the next slide was some links to the resources, but it's also in the shared folder. So that's kind of I guess that's kind of all I've got, man.
Yeah. No, I thought that was great, and you know what? As you were talking, the polyline tool, like I've never used it. I've used the scribble and the draw, and I'm like, wait a minute. So like I'm on my Chromebook over here trying to try that out. So that was a great example with that. And we use the tip you talked about of putting everything in the background. I thought was an amazing tip. We use that a lot with our teachers, especially students. If you don't want it to move, and normally we get that question from drawing, I don't want my background to move. Yeah. Put it in slides, put it as your background, and it's not going to, so that's a great tip to offer teachers and students. You don't want it to move, but you still want the functionality of drawing. Smash that app and push it into Google Slides, and you're going to be ready to rock and roll with that.
Yeah, we do the same kind of thing, but we do it with newsletters. So change the aspect ratio of the piece, and then have the layout, because I mean, we hear from teachers all the time that we need publisher, we need a layout program, and just the ability to have that layout program inside, using drawings as a background and using slides. The combination of the two is fantastic.
Great. Any final thoughts from everyone, or we'll wrap up our kickoff to summer here with our GEG. But Stephanie, we want to thank you so much. First of all, congratulations for being accepted into the Innovator Academy, and just tonight you've done some amazing sharing with everyone about some of the great things we can do with Google Slides and Google Drawings in our classrooms. All right.
Okay, guys, sorry about that.
Yeah.
We had to transfer to the world's ugliest kitchen because my Chromebook just shut down, so I had to go plug in. Sorry about that.
That's all good. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining in for our back-to-school session, and we're so glad you joined us. If you find this useful, or you know somebody that will really enjoy watching this, make sure you share this link out. We'll make sure it's posted on our GEG page. It's also going to be posted on YouTube, so feel free to join in. And if you have any suggestions, tips, tricks, or things that you've experienced, or great ideas that you've created using this idea of interactive slides with drawings and slides, be sure to share that on our GEG page and let us know some of those great tools. So we wish you guys have a great summer and a fun learning this summer, and we'll catch you next time for our next GEG webinar.